What's up guys, DuArktik here with another Marvel Strike Force video, and in this video we're going to talk about Pegasus. We're going to take a look how to build Pegasus on a budget, making sure that they are as powerful as they need to be, and see exactly which T4s you should invest in, which T4s you can skip, what's the most consistent ISO weight that you can use, and also the usefulness of this team outside of their main game mode, which is raids. So we're also going to take a look at the context of Alliance Wars and also Cosmic Crucible. So hopefully this will help you to build the Pegasus team without breaking the bank, as this is a very powerful team, but you can skip a lot of things and make them definitely on a budget. So as always, if you like the information on these videos, make sure to share it with your friends on Facebook and Discord. If you're new to my channel, make sure to subscribe for more Marvel Strike Force content, and make sure to smash that like button like a boss. Okay, so who's an absolute boss is the Pegasus team. The Pegasus team, even around 1 million power, they can destroy all the raids that we have right now in the game, which is the main game mode that they were made of. So we're gonna take a look at which T4s you have to do, how much you have to gear them up, and so on, in order to be successful with the Pegasus team. You're gonna be able to find all this information on my infographic that will be available on my Discord. You can see the T4s. If they are orange, it means they are good in all game modes. If they are green, that means they are only useful, or they are more useful in raids. In terms of the ISO weight, we have the ISO weight for lower level or lower investment, and then for higher investment, and when you have your team a little bit more build up, red star investments and priorities, and then the best game modes for them, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about that later on. Okay, so let's move on. Let's take a look at the Pegasus team, and we're gonna start with the first character, Darkhawk. Darkhawk is a character that his main benefits is going to be his passive, because he's going to bring crit chance and crit damage to the table, and on top of that he also has a mechanic with his basic and also with his passive. Whenever you use their basics, you're going to get energy on the entire team, and this is going to be huge. So this is going to be two mechanics that you need to be aware of. Is the passive of Darkhawk, and then use the basics of the different characters. Now in terms of T4s, the T4s on Darkhawk passive, it's okay T4. Is it a must-have? Nice to, it's definitely nice to have, because you're increasing the crit chance and crit damage of your team, and that will allow you to do more damage without having to put more gear on them, right? So you can choose, are you going to put more gear on them, or are you going to spend this T4 and allow your characters to do more crit damage. Okay, in terms of the ultimate, this is a T4 that you can definitely skip. I did this T4, huge mistake. He does not get offense up over 2 buffs, so the maximum bonus he gets is only 50%, and it's not a big deal. It's definitely not a big deal. His damage is not that remarkable, and he's one of those characters that you can invest less, because most of the power is coming from Kestrel and also from Iron Man Infinity War. Okay, so ultimate kinda skip. Then we have the special. I think this C4 is very good, because it's gonna spread a lot of negative effects, and yes, this team can stack up a lot of negative effects. They have stuns, ability blocks, blinds, traumas, slows, defense downs, offense downs, so they have all kinds of things that you can spread to other characters. Multiple bleeds, so you can spread all of that junk into your enemies, and that's why this T4 is going to be very important. And then we have the basic, applies offense down for 2 turns. This is okay. It will make sure that your enemies will have consistently offense down, but right now at this point in time, in the Incursion Raids 1, this T4 is not as important, because you just thread through the enemies, so it won't matter. So for Darkhawk, the T4s you want is the special and the passive. The other ones are not so relevant. In terms of ISO 8, I went with a Raider, because he attacks multiple targets with his abilities. He doesn't need the focus on the special. You could do it, but it's not really necessary. So we are just going to make sure that he's getting healing as much as possible, and that we are increasing his damage output based on the critical strike chance. Okay, now we're gonna move on to the next character, which is going to be Ironheart. Okay, Ironheart. Let's talk about T4s. Very, very important that you do the passive of Ironheart, because she's going to give more armor and more, and she's going to apply disrupt to your enemies. This is great because there are a lot of characters that gain stun. This is great because there are a lot of characters that gain stealth. There are a lot of characters that gain taunt, and you want to avoid all of that. This T4 also works outside of raids, so in Alliance Wars and in Cosmic Crucible, so this is a huge value T4 for multiple game modes. Then we have the ultimate, and the ultimate is must have in terms of raids, but it is also a very nice to have outside of raids, and this is because you're applying stun for 2 turns rather than 1, but at the same time you are applying slow. When you have slow and stun, this is the best combo ever, so the ultimate of Ironheart is definitely a must have T4. In terms of the special, when you apply the T4 on this ability, you are going to apply trauma in raids, and outside of raids it just does a little bit of damage. So if you have your team very, very big, you don't need this T4 because you don't need the trauma. You are just going to shred through everything. If you don't have your team that big, you can do this T4 just to make sure that the negative effects stick to your enemies and that they cannot remove them. In terms of the basic, extends negative effects only on one target, and it's not a very important T4. It doesn't extend stuns, it doesn't extend ability block, so it's definitely something you should skip. It's just not relevant enough. In terms of ISO 8, I strongly recommend Skirmisher on Ironheart. First off, because she is the character that has been locked behind the paywall, locked behind the month event, and because of that you want to make sure that she has enough focus to land her stun, which is crucial in terms of raids. In terms of Cosmic Crucible Alliance Wars, I think it's also important to land a stun, especially when the stun is followed by a slow and clearing positive effects. So having focus on this character is definitely must have in my opinion. And the Skirmisher ISO 8 is going to feel that necessity. Okay, now we have Iron Man Infinity War. In terms of T4s, he has a decent amount of T4s. We're going to start off with his passive, where he's going to increase the damage of Pegasus allies and Thor in all game modes. On top of that, it also increases their damage in raids, so you're going to have a 60% increase on the damage output, so this is going to allow you to save a lot of gear just by doing this T4. Then we have the ultimate, and the ultimate is amazing inside of raids. Outside of raids it's okay, it's nice to have, because instead of applying blind to one target for one turn, you're going to apply for one target for 2 turns. So blind for 2 turns, of course, much better, especially when you are considering that Ironheart already applies slow to your enemies, so these blinds and these stuns are going to last for a lot longer. On top of that, in raids is going to apply blinds to any characters with vulnerabilities, and depending on how fast your Darkhawk or your other characters ISO 8 are, this might apply blinds to like multiple targets. Is a great ability. But usually 1 or 2 targets is good enough, for example the Gambits or the Silver Surfers, and you don't need much more than that. Let's move on to the special, and with the special you increase your ability block from 1 turn to 2 turns. Once again, more stuns, more blinds, more ability blocks for more turns, and special with slow, that's going to be much better. This T4 has some additional value because you are also applying bleed to your enemies for 2 turns, and the higher is the ability level, the bleeds are also going to do more damage. So not only are you going to apply ability block for 1 additional turn, you're also going to increase the power of your bleeds and also the damage multiplier on multiple targets. And finally we have the basic, and the basic for Iron Man depends on how big your Iron Man is, because if you have your Iron Man like super big, gear tier 17 or 18 or something like that, you could make him a striker and that would allow you to turn rewind your enemies inside of raids. I'm gonna be honest, you don't need this ability. Once again, your enemies or your characters do so much damage that you don't have to worry about your enemies taking turns. And if you are attacking your characters properly with him and with Ironheart applying stun to the right characters, you don't have anything to worry about, and the turning wine is just not relevant enough. With that said, I made my Iron Man skirmisher just to make sure that I don't have to invest teal gear on him. I can do all the difficulties of raids right now with just orange gear, and once again this is because of the skirmisher isolate, making sure that he has enough focus to land all the negative effects that he needs to land, the blinds, the ability blocks, the bleeds and so on, to the enemies. Once again, if you decide to take this character maybe to Dark Dimension 6, which is a possibility, you could make him a striker and benefit out of the turning wine on the enemies, but I prefer this option. Striker is also a good option if you are considering taking him or taking him like very serious in Alliance Wars and Cosmic Crucible, so keep that in mind. Depending on the gear investment, you can go with a skirmisher or with a striker, and also depending on the game mode. Okay, let's move on to the next character, and the next character is going to be Kestrel. In terms of the T4s for Kestrel, you definitely have to do her passive, because with her passive she's going to heal more on turn, and she's also going to do more damage whenever someone attacks characters with defense down. So it doesn't matter whoever attacks the characters with defense down, she's gonna pop 400% damage in their face, and the passive is going to increase from 300 to 400. On top of that, she's going to heal up for additional 10%. For each negative effect, she's going to heal up herself by 5%, and she's also going to give additional health to Nick Fury with her passive. So we have multiple things that you can benefit of, some in raids, some in Alliance Wars, some in Cosmic Crucible, some in Dark Dimension. So depending on where you're using this character, you're always going to benefit from the passive, so this is a must-have T4. In terms of the ultimate is a nuke, single target nuke, that does piercing damage. When you do the T4, you get 100% more damage. You apply defense down for 2 turns. I'm gonna be very honest, this is a T4 that you can skip unless you want to put all T4s on your Kestrel, but yeah, this is something that you can definitely skip. It's the ultimate on Kestrel. In terms of the special, you are going to apply damage, defense down, to multiple targets for 2 turns, and on top of that you are going to give immunity to Kestrel for 2 turns. In raids, this is not important T4 because you have other characters that also give immunity, but outside of raids, in Alliance Wars, in Cosmic Crucible, in Dark Dimension, the special T4 for Kestrel is extremely useful. And finally, we have the basic for Kestrel. This is a decent T4, is a nice to have. Defense down for multiple turns, more damage to multiple targets, and if you are using her as a striker, of course she's going to do more damage with her striker isolate. If you are using her as a raider, you can definitely skip the T4 on the basic, and that's it. Okay, in terms of isolate, I like to use her as a striker, once again, because of the additional damage from the basic, and because sometimes you fail to land the defense down with your first ability, or with a special, or with the basic, or with the ultimate, and the isolate attack gives you an additional chance of applying that defense down, which afterwards you are going to benefit from her passive, pinging the enemies, and so on. Some people like to use it as a raider. I don't think the additional damage has a lot of value, and especially if you are facing characters in Alliance Wars or Cosmic Crucible with a lot of deflects, the deflects will stop the raider isolate. And on top of that, outside of her team, she does not benefit that much from raider. So overall, I just prefer striker because it's more useful. It's better in more game modes and does not require her to be together with the Pegasus team. Okay, we have the last character, which is going to be Rescue. And Rescue, she is the healer of the team, she's a support character. In the past, she only had one attack, which was the basic, but now her special is also an attack, so this is going to impact the isolate that we are going to use for her. In terms of T4s, there are a lot of T4s that you can skip for her, but the passive is must have. In raids is must have. Outside of raids it doesn't do anything, but in raids, whenever a Pegasus ally dies, she's going to get 50% speed bar and she's going to get 3 energy. On top of that, she's also going to clear all negative effects from her, so that means that she's going to have a turn right away and she's going to revive someone. This is extremely useful in raids. Outside of the raids, not so much. Now we have the ultimate. This is another must-have T4 for rescue, because it's going to allow her to revive characters she's going to revive characters in all game modes. That's it. You can use this revive mechanic in Cosmic Crucible, in Alliance Wars, and especially in Dark Dimension. There are a lot of people considering Rescue and Iron Man Infinity War for Dark Dimension, and this is a T4 that you must have if you are considering taking those characters to Dark Dimension. Okay, in terms of the special, this is a T4 that you can definitely skip. It doesn't bring anything to the table, and because of that, like, it's whatever. In Alliance Wars, in Cosmic Crucible, in raids, in Dark Dimension, is not going to bring anything to the table, so you can definitely skip the special for rescue. In terms of the basic, you actually use the basic of rescue quite often, so this is definitely a T4 that I would recommend, because when you do this T4, she's going to apply defense down to all the targets that she attacks, and she's going to attack 2 targets, so that's going to be extremely helpful when you are using her in Alliance Wars, in Cosmic Crucible, because you have a small amount of characters that you are facing. But in raids, she's going to apply more defense downs, and then Kestrel is going to benefit from those defense downs, activating her passive more often. So this is not like a mandatory T4, but it's definitely a nice to have T4 when you are done with everything else. In terms of isolate for rescue, you can use her as a healer or as a skirmisher. If you have your team big enough, if your team is like they have so much armor and health that you don't need like additional healing, you could make her a skirmisher just to make sure that she's applying vulnerabilities with her special and also with her basic. Okay, so that covers all the T4s and isolate for the Pegasus team. This is the position I like to use on them, and I'm going to explain why. Some people are a little bit confused by this position, but I'm going to tell you. So first off, you want to have Ironheart somewhere in the middle because you want her to die. If Ironheart dies and rescue revives Ironheart, your team is going to get a bunch of speed bar and energy. So the more often Ironheart dies, the better it is for you. Darkhawk, as I said, his damage is not meaningful enough to really care about it, so he can also die. You can also have the enemies to apply turning wind to him, or slows, or offense downs, or whatever. It doesn't really matter if he gets negative effects, so you don't have to worry about that. And Iron Man is the tank, so we can put the tank in the corners or in the middle. If your team does not have counter attacks, which is the case for this one, you want to put the tank in the middle, so if the enemies have some chain attack, they chain or to the left or to the right, and if you put the tank in the corner, well, they are going to chain across your entire team, and this stops all those chain attacks. So instead of the enemies attacking 5 targets, they are only going to attack 2 or 3 targets. Kestrel, as I said, she's the main focus, she's the main source of damage, so you don't want her to have any kind of turning winds, you don't want her to have any kind of disrupts, negative effects, offense downs, defense downs. Like, you don't want Kestrel to die, you don't want Kestrel to be touched, you just want Kestrel to be in the corner slapping everyone as much as possible. Finally, we have Rescue. Guess what? Rescue is the character that revives, so the same way that we don't want Kestrel to get attacked because she's the main source of damage, we also want to make sure that Rescue is not attacked as well, because she's our backup lamp, she's our insurance, insurance policy in order to bring back the team from the dead. So yeah, I think this is the best position with all those things in mind, stopping the counterattacks, the chains, and so on, and making sure that they have the highest damage output, and also making sure that our insurance revive policy is always up. Okay, that's it. Let's take a look at the infographic, break down the remaining information. So in terms of red stars, the characters that you should prioritize the red stars is Iron Man, Infinity War, and Kestrel. Then the other characters, you could eventually get additional red stars on Ironheart and Darkhawk, but it's definitely not a priority. And Rescue, you could also give her big red stars just to make sure that she stays alive, but because you have more yellow stars and red stars on her already, because she's an older character, it's definitely not a priority for your gold promos. The position we already talked about in terms of game modes. You can split this team in two. You can put Kestrel in one team and Iron Man, Ironheart, and Rescue in other team, and they're going to be great for Blitz. They are not going to be great in Arena. They are going to be amazing for raids because they were made for raids. Then in terms of Dark Dimension, Kestrel is pretty much a must-have character there because she uses skill and tech, so she becomes very convenient to use. Then we have Iron Man and Rescue that, once again, because of Rescue Revive and because Iron Man applies blinds, he can be quite useful. But it's not like top priority in terms of Dark Dimension. It's just a nice to have option in case you have nothing to do with your tech gear. In terms of Alliance Wars and Avengers Tower, this team really punches up quite a lot, and they are quite powerful against multiple enemies, especially if you are facing a summoner, because Kestrel stops all summons. And you can see the main priority is going to be all characters except Darkhawk, so keep that in mind. Outside of raids, Darkhawk doesn't do much. In Cosmic Crucible, unfortunately on Season 5, which is the season that is about to start as this video is dropping, in Season 5, the Pegasus team is not going to be that great, and the character that has the most value is going to be Kestrel because she has the most value outside of her own team. So unfortunately, they might not be very useful going forward in Cosmic Crucible in Season 5. Maybe Season 6 they do a return, but definitely not the case. Okay, so that's everything that you need to know about the Pegasus team. We covered the T4s, the ISO weight, the red stars, the position of the team, the best game modes for them. And I hope this will help you to save some resources in terms of gear, in terms of T4s. As you guys can see, there are a lot of T4s that you can skip. And as always, you can find all of this information on my infographics, which are available on my Discord for free. So make sure you join. You have the link in the description. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you smash that like button. And if you found the video helpful, make sure you share it with your friends on Facebook and Discord. If you are new to my channel, make sure you subscribe for more Marvel Strike Force content, and I'll catch you guys later.